scientists, this mysterious bombing that took out people. I mean, it's just amazing the fear-mongering that's going on with Iran, and also now Syria's on the agenda. It's just going to happen where we're just going to be taking out these countries that are last in line. Unfortunately, Russia, Russia's been kind of being quiet for the last couple of years. They've been kind of working their way across Africa. Russia doesn't fall in line with this agenda, so it's going to be very interesting. They've already threatened to react if we put up those missile bases around the Eastern Bloc. So things are really tense right now. China, of course, owns our debt. They make all our products, so they're kind of our puppet, or are we their puppet? We don't know. It's kind of hard to tell at this point, but there's definitely giant players who don't gel with this agenda, and things are going to come to a head very soon.
And I should add that there was top Russian diplomats, including Garry Kasparov, who's a very vocal Putin opponent, and we had a lot of the Chinese delegation there, including top Chinese people from within the United States itself. Now, Bilderberg always says they don't exist, but then when it's exposed, they do exist. They say it's not important. They don't decide policy inside there. Already, that's doublespeak. We've just gotten this huge data leak from the 1966 meeting, and it's clear. I've been looking over these documents for the past 4 or 5 days now. They were deciding on the future of NATO. They were deciding on how to plan economies. They were deciding what countries and what quotas they'd be able to send their exports. They'd decide how to put strings on developing countries and how to try to control the population. Oh, but wait, they don't do anything.
Right.
What's your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, these documents that you guys got a hold of are very damning. They definitely show discussion about these different things that we saw go into place. I mean, it's absurd to think that they don't just talk about policy. Someone was telling me that they went inside the Marriott days before the actual conference, and there was like 120 desks in a circle with their own individual microphones, like a UN meeting. I mean, you're telling me that these people don't discuss policy and plan agenda? I mean, in their official website, they talk about things that they're going to pursue, how to, talk about the evolution of democracy across the world, cyber terrorism. I mean, these things we know there's going to be agenda that comes out of them. What else would they be doing there? And why is it so secret? I mean, it's just absurd to think that there isn't things that are being planned and discussing that is going to affect the entire world. And as you said with these documents, I mean, it came out, the euro was being talked about, I mean, decades before.
I want to talk about a Brzezinski quote. They're also asking me to pull out the handwritten notes, which was just part of this data dump that came from Senator Fred Harris's personal collection. Here they are. Here's some of the handwritten notes. And he's got stuff on the head of the UAW union, Walter P. Reuther. He's got notes from John J. McCloy and, frankly, all the other delegates, all with headers here. It's very interesting. We're going to show some of that on screen. But, Zbigniew Brzezinski used to attend Bilderberg. He stopped after a couple decades. But he used to talk about how in world government, there's, of course, the over-the-table and under-the-table agreements. I think that's really what Bilderberg represents. They're gradually, incrementally moving us to world government, first with things like Carnegie for International Peace, then with the United Nations, and ever gradually more binding organizations, NATO, the rest of it. But meanwhile, of course, they're doing insider trading when they meet in secret, when the media doesn't cover it. And so Bilderberg is really where they meet behind the Wizard of Oz curtain. And then the dinosaur media is those who won't report on the curtain once it's been open. And that's really the Washington Post. They've had the owners of the Washington Post, Katharine Graham, now her son Donald Graham, meeting at Bilderberg every year since the very first year, 1954. Now we're 60 years into this. This year was the first time the Washington Post did any coverage of the Bilderberg meeting at all.
Yeah, and I mean, they probably just called it a bunch of conspiracy theorists getting around, protesting something that didn't matter. I mean, it's amazing when the corporate media did cover it, as you said, for years, they didn't even talk about it. And then when they finally do, they just use that pejorative term. It's a conspiracy theory. There's nothing going on. Well, that's just a lazy way to shut down dialogue. And it's just really sad, because it shuts people's brains down and doesn't make them think. But what you were saying, these documents and the ones from, what was it, 1955 meeting?
I think that's the other set. This set is from 1966.
Okay. But just the fact that they were saying that nationalism is dangerous. I mean, this was from 50 years ago that they're talking about that concept being a danger to whatever it is that they're talking about and discussing. I mean, that's definitely troubling.
And it's a reminder, too, of how they infiltrate Congress, how they gradually win them over to this world government mentality when they were elected by the people, but they don't represent the people because they've been led to believe in these Senate committee hearings, things called national security and on, that nationalism is really the problem. As you probably know, national security was really this cloak to hide all their secret maneuvering. That's how they brought the CIA out into the shadows, but with public financing and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure another part on the agenda of this year that we won't hear about is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is this consortium of 200 corporate advisors over 9 countries from all across Asia talking about opening up another trade agreement that will eliminate the Buy America Act. I mean, these are elements that are completely under the radar from the mainstream dialogue. I mean, people all know about NATO, but no one's talking about this and what it could possibly do to this country and the sovereignty of America. And even Senator Wyden proposed, he's the chair of this trade organization in the Senate, and he's talking about why is Obama not letting us see what you guys are talking about, the negotiations that are happening in the TPP. This is completely secret, and I'm the head of this chair on trade, and you're not even letting me see what it is you guys are discussing with these 200 corporate advisors everywhere from pharmaceuticals to banking. I mean, what are they talking about, and what is this? What are the effects going to be for this country if that happens?
And of course, all these partnerships are sold on the idea of prosperity and security for the nations, but it's always proves to be a corporate back end, so they get, sweetheart deals and the rest of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Buy America Act's been in place for so long, and that's like, the mainstay of this country. Yeah, buy American, buy American. Well, of course, not anymore. Now it's buy Chinese, but I mean, this will completely eliminate that and just push up drug prices, all the rest of it. Yeah, but like you said, of course, it's under the guise of, open trade is a good thing. Let's open it up to everyone.
Yeah, well, they call these trading blocks free trade. It's obviously not free. Let's go back to cybersecurity. That's also on the official agenda. I know you've reported on it. General Keith Alexander has been in attendance for the past several years. He's concurrently the head of the National Security Agency. And Cybercom was only launched 2 years ago. Of course, we know the Stuxnet was a covert attack on Iran. The covert war against Iran has otherwise been launched. It has everything to do with the tension between Russia and China. I think it's a big topic. Tell us your point of view on it.
Yeah, I mean, living in D.C. is pretty surreal because I'm going to these museums at the National Mall and they're just filled with propaganda, one of them in which is an exhibit called Weapons of Mass Disruption. That quote from Obama talking about cyber terrorism. I mean, you see Robert Mueller out there saying it's going to be the #1 threat facing this nation. There's committees hearings saying it's not a matter of if, but when there'll be a cyber Pearl Harbor. I mean, this is the rhetoric we see coming out of the White House, coming out of the administration. And there was just a poll that said that Americans are more scared of cyber terrorism than they are actual terrorism. So the rhetoric is working, the fear-mongering is working. And as we see, despite this heavy rhetoric about cyber terrorism being the biggest threat to this country, we're engaging in cyber warfare against countries like Iran. I mean, that's insane. It's completely hypocritical. I don't know if they're trying to instigate some sort of cyber retaliatory attack on this country so they can justify passing legislation like CISPA. I mean, I don't know. I don't put it past them to completely stage something, and that's the sad part with groups like Anonymous and all these entities that are kind of omnipresent online. It's kind of hard to point the finger at a faceless entity and say this was or wasn't the government that did this, but they could pretty much do whatever they want, blame it on whoever they want, and push through legislation like that completely curbs our right to privacy online. Not that we have much right to privacy online anymore as it is, but it's definitely the next thing that they're fear-mongering us about. We all should really be aware of it and try to push back against it.
Yeah, that is very interesting about Anonymous and the other groups, LulzSec or whatever, because it could be people trying to do good work, but it's just as easily hijacked by the system itself to sell us, as you said, on CISPA, the ACTA treaty. They're fighting back against it in the EU. We'll see what the final decision on that is. And we, of course, in the U.S. have to fight back against the Senate not to pass CISPA. We've defeated SOPA, we've defeated PIPA, and we have to continue to fight until that is put to bed for good, if it ever will be.
Oh, but Aaron, Obama says he'll veto it. Come on.
Yeah.
Just like he did the NDA.
So I guess we'll figure out if we want Obamacare or Romney Care or what have you. I just want to mention that it's great to see all the activists at Bilderberg. I've watched it myself grow over the years. People like yourself, other activists I've watched become the media, start their own organizations. The people they meet at these kind of gatherings, it's not just a protest at that moment in time. It's this new network of people who are informed and want to be engaged. We're trying to do that also online with PlanetInfowars.com. I hope people will sign up there, meet groups in their area or even across the globe and start to fight back, because we have to do our homework. We have to show up at these meetings and we have to let people know what's really going on. We have to unmask the hidden government, the shadow government. We've come a long way in that respect. But we have to, of course, keep up the fight. It's all there on PlanetInfowars.com. And, of course, these documents, all our Bilderberg coverage at PrisonPlanet.tv. Anything else you'd like to add, Abby Martin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's a global consciousness happening. I think the Occupy Wall Street, the spirit of revolution is very well alive and well since Obama won. I think people are waking up to the real power structure and the puppets who control these politicians, the fact that elections are bought and paid for. And it's just important to not get disillusioned with federal elections, because every day is a vote that you can do. Everything you do, tuning into the alternative media, the corporations that you choose to support or not support, the local businesses that you help grow. These are all things that we could do on a daily basis, and information is power. Information is a beautiful, enlightening thing, and don't let it make you scared to do anything. Don't feel like you're going to get on a list, and don't let that inhibit your personal growth and evolution. Just reach out to your community, start the dialogue, and take in as much information as you can, because humans have created everything that we see up until this point, and we have the power, we have the ability to change it in a positive way, in a positive direction, if we just reach out to each other and do it, and just put yourself out there. Find out what it is you're passionate about and what you're good at, and use that to inspire others and create change in a beautiful, positive way in your community, your life, and the world.
That's well said. I just want to add, because you made a good point about the federal elections, while they do continue to be a sham, Obamni, whatever, they've barely kept the lid on this. The Ron Paul revolution, whether or not anyone out there individually supports Ron Paul, was a huge contagion, viral movement, and they just barely were able to keep that from spilling over. They did everything in their power to keep the media blackout going, to keep the delegates fight from happening. That's not even over, by the way. That may prove to be a final act in this election, but we are making a difference. We're having a response, whether you're fighting on that front or any of the other hundreds of fronts. Abby Martin, thanks for joining us. Tell us where we could find your RT coverage and your other websites.
Just check out YouTube for RT TV, rt.com/USA, and then you can find all our reports are archived on YouTube. For my art, abbymartin.org, my Twitter handle @abbymartin, and mediaroots.org. I archive all the best stuff from RT that I've done on there. So definitely check that out. And thanks so much for having me on. I'm a huge fan. I've been a fan for a long time, so it's an honor to be on and to talk to you.
We're glad to have you. We'll have to do something on Project Censored separately in the future, too. We'll speak to you in the future. Thanks, Abby Martin. That's all for tonight's InfoWars Nightly News. We'll be back again tomorrow, but for tonight, keep watching and check out PlanetInfowars.com.